Hey, everybody, welcome. It's Deborah and happy July. I love July. It's my favorite month of the year. Everybody can hear me okay? I want to I want to introduce one of my senior grad teachers, Lisa Vander Kaay, if Dina would bring her up and have her join me up here.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Lisa.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming. So I try to bring you guys some really gifted teachers and content. And Lisa, I've been listening to for a couple of years now in my 4 or 5 class talk about herbalism. And she's also very trained in astrology. And so today she's bringing us Astro-Herbalism, a topic I'm pretty excited about. And so I hope you're out on the road and in the trees in the forest like I am in July. But let's all take an hour and find out what Lisa has to teach on this. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah. And thank you very much, Deborah, for the opportunity to bring this forward. I'm really excited.
Yeah, no, this is really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. So without further ado, I will share a presentation that I have for you guys today. Oh, it looks like I might need sharing privileges. Let's see. Nope. Looks like we have it. Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm so excited that you guys are here today, and I'm going to be sharing on the as above, so below, Astro-Herbalism, and we're going to explore the ancient principles and the profound connections between the cosmos, the plants, and our body, and how we can use that chart to look at the elemental perspective, the energetic perspective in our birth chart to kind of remedy it to what they say remediation in our chart. It's just using herbs or other lifestyle kind of things. And so, but first, before I start, I always like to do a little disclaimer because I am talking about, possible changes or herbs that I may be recommending. But at that time, I always say, please, please, please consult your medical practitioner, whoever you see, because this is just for educational purposes. It's historical of interest. And I always say, better to ask, before you make any, changes in your diet or herbs and things like that. So, how I got started in herbalism was when I was about 10 years old. My mom took me to a homeopathic doctor. And it was initially at the recommendation of her friend who was from Sweden. And so, they do kind of alternative therapies there. But I had learning disabilities when I was young. And I also had some physical issues in my knees. I was having a lot of issues in that respect. And so by going there, I really got my first taste, literally, of herbalism and herbs and how they worked in the body and how your constitution, really does play an effect in what you put in it and what you take in it and what you observe. So that was really important to me. And then in my early 40s, so we're going to jump up quite a few years, I actually was diagnosed and treated with Lyme disease. And my functional medicine doctor diagnosed me because I was not feeling well and was not, just I had low energy and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. And to my surprise, I found out I had Lyme. And so she treated me with a course of antibiotics, but she mostly treated me with medicinal tinctures to treat all the bacteria, all the, bird, I can't think of the name right now, but all the things that come along with Lyme disease, the parasites, etc. And so she used that. And I treated for about 2 years, and it was really monumental in another jumping off point in my life to continue and, leading for me looking for other ways to heal. And that's when I went and I did an herbal botany apprenticeship. And I spent 2 full years, 3 years doing an herbal apprenticeship. I did 1 full year in a botany apprenticeship. I've studied with many different people in herbalism, astrology, you name it. I kind of really was, diving deep into what I wanted to learn more about myself, which was how to heal. And also during that time, I was studying with Deborah as well. And so I feel like, kind of combining those things together was really like divine timing. And it gave me that introduction to herbalism and those medicinal plants. And I could really see like the powerful way that it can heal your mind, body, and your spirit. And so speaking about my apprenticeship, these are some photos of me, kind of out and about during that time. But it was then that I really kind of started to learn more about the as above, so below principle. And so when we were in the field, we had these little magnifying loops that we would use and to determine what kind of a plant it was. And we would look at the characteristics, the shape, the color, the structure, its patterns, and also what elevation, what environment is it in. And then when you look physically through that magnifying loop and you look at the inside of a plant and everything that's contained in there, it is really mind-blowing, because it does really reflect that inner and outer world for us. It's, as above, so below. It's like what is in us is also reflected, in the universe. And so as plants are living organisms as well, they adapt and survive in their environment. They communicate with each other. They create relationships with each other to survive. I know one time we were out in the forest somewhere where there was a fire here in California many, many years ago, and looking at how these plants and the regrowth that came back over time is just truly amazing. I mean, if you think about the weeds that kind of come out of of the sidewalk or anywhere, and just how they adapt, change, and learn how to survive to come back again. And so I think that is the essence of life. When you want to take a closer look at the patterns, the cycles, the relationships, you can really learn a lot about yourself. And that is definitely the as above, so below principle, because it is the interconnectedness of all things. We are not separate, but we are truly, truly one. And so what's in the sky, and rooted here on earth, we can really gain like a deeper understanding of the patterns and the relationship, inside us and outside us. And so leading to a little more on as above, so below, I wanted to reference some sacred literature, because there is so much about the as above, so below principle. So Hermes Trismegistus, I can never pronounce his name. He wrote the Emerald Tablet dating back to early centuries CE. And he said, as above, so below, so within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. And so I think many astrologers, have understood this connection over time, that there's this connection between the earth, the stars, and the planet in the sky. And it is echoed through many, many sacred literatures, like the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, Buddhism, I Ching, and a lot of others. And then there's just also people that have been strictly influenced by the Hermetic principle of correspondence, which is the as above, so below. So Theosophist Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and psychologist Carl Jung, you could see a lot of their influence, in their work and in their presentations regarding that. And the Hermetic principle of correspondence, the as above, so below, really does connect the macrocosm, which is the universe, with the individual, which is us, the microcosm. And so those patterns, rhythms we observe in the cosmos are mirrored within us, in our minds and our body. And so it's really central to the philosophy of like alchemy, which teaches that if you observe your outer world, you're going to gain a lot of insights into your inner world as well, and vice versa. Because as Deborah teaches, it's through relationships that we actually learn about ourselves through others. And, many masters have taught about that over time. But it's really the key, I think, to understanding ourselves through others as well. And so the practice of astrology kind of grew out of a land-based calendar system known as astrological agriculture. And it can be traced back to Mesopotamia, particularly Babylon, BCE. And this is where they use these celestial like observations for their agriculture cycles to align with the cosmic rhythms for planting, for harvesting, agricultural tasks in general. And then also in India, with origins dating way back just as long in BCE, there's also Ayurveda and the Vedic astrologer Jyotish, which also have a lot of ancient roots integrating these holistic approach to health and well-being through the mind-body-spirit connection too. And then Egypt and surrounding areas, in North Africa, the practice of astrology and herbalism really spread across there in various ancient civilizations over time as well, BCE. And then as time went by, the Mediterranean really became like a region, like a melting pot where people were spreading herbal knowledge and astrology, and Greek and Roman physicians such as Hippocrates and Galen really incorporated these astrological principles into their medical practices. And so Paracelsus says the medicine must be prepared in the stars, and the stars will become the medicine, for it is they that complete the work of the physician. And as we go through this, you'll see and understand why, that particular quote is so powerful. And a little history on Astro-Herbalism, which we're going to be talking about more in depth here today. So throughout history, physicians and healers have recognized the connection between the celestial bodies and the human body. And Astro-Herbalism itself has its earliest origins in ancient Mesopotamia, 5,000 years ago, where Sumerian healers would write on these clay tablets and listing hundreds and hundreds of medicinal plants. And so during the Renaissance era, astrology was seen as a part of the scientific and intellectual basis of medical education and practice, where physicians would, consider the patient's zodiac sign and other positions of the celestial bodies when making decisions. They were also herbalists because if you think about it, that was the primary form of medicine. And one other note too is that the physicians at that time had to actually pass exams in astrology to be recognized as astrologers. And so talking about a little further about the as above, so below, and what that means in Astro-Herbalism, it is the combining of those two, astrology and herbalism, to create like healing protocols that are aligned with plant energies and celestial influences. So just as the stars, just as the stars and planets have predictable cycles, so do we. We all have inherent tendencies like vulnerabilities that are reflected in our birth chart. And you'll see that as we kind of go through and I talk about some of the elements and some of the signs and how that does relate to each other. Because Astro-Herbalism really is a bridge to the celestial realm. It reminds us that we are not separate from nature, but rather we are a part of it. So let's take a deeper look at that relationship that I was talking about between herbs and planetary correspondence, where we're going to see how it correlates to like body parts, organ systems, and like general health traits. And what I call the astrological blueprint of healing, it really does just talk about what's in your birth chart, your natal chart, and all the planets, all the houses, and how they correspond to particular various body parts, organ systems, and general health traits. And so it does act like a blueprint to kind of tell you like, well, if you have, Mars and Leo, how is that going to express? Well, Mars is inflammation, it's fire. And if it's in Leo, a fire sign, you're going to have that double dose of kind of inflammatory type of response. And so this is how we're going to use this today. And each of the 12 zodiac signs and their ruling planets are affiliated with those body parts, organs, and systems. And then there's a part of it called chart analysis. And then that with what you do can be very complicated, or we can make it very simple. But typically what you want to look at is your rising sign, your sun sign, your moon, and your sixth house. You could take it levels deeper and look at transits, aspects. It's just kind of a tool for you to use to understand like the holistic approach of optimizing your own well-being. And by using, today we're going to talk about herbal remedies and how we can actually incorporate those, into our diet, into our lifestyle to support and match our astrological makeup and how it's expressing based on the celestial cycles, planetary movements, etc. And so, as I discussed, we're going to talk about the elements. And each of us have a certain number of fire, earth, air, and water. And energetically, what that means is you could see that fire, these are the fire signs here, they're hot and dry. Earth, cold and dry, which is Taurus, Virgo, and Cap. And then hot and moist for Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And then water, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And so I'll use myself as an example. So I am predominantly earth, like almost all earth, followed by fire, followed by water, and then air. I have very, very little air. And so for me, I'm going to look and see how that's expressing in my chart currently, a little bit deeper, maybe by transits or houses, but just from a basic perspective, I'm going to probably want to, compensate for this heat and cold and dry over here and maybe look for a little moisture in my diet, something that's going to balance that out. So for example, I'm giving a presentation today. Air is all about communication. It's your mental focus. And so by doing this today is giving me more of that air quality. And if I was looking to compensate for my water, which is like your emotional state, I would really want to be, say, more cognizant of my feelings or looking for ways to express myself, not holding things in. And what I'm going to do today as well is I'm going to break things out by the element sign of fire, earth, air, and water. And then I'm going to put the associated signs of Aries, Leo, and Sag underneath so you guys can kind of see how it balances out and how it all kind of plays together. So the fire element rules heart, circulatory, digestive fire. This is very high level, but this kind of just some keywords. It kind of gives you the characteristics of what you might be looking at if you're a fire sign. They typically have like athletic build. They have good stamina. When they're in balance, they have great vitality, good life force, really great metabolism. They're real action oriented. They're high energy, that kind of thing in terms of the characteristics. But when they're in excess, these are some of the things that can happen. So you could possibly have maybe heart disease, palpitations, spine misalignments, spinal cord or scoliosis. I am a Leo rising, and I do contend with some adult onset scoliosis and some because of discompression. So just think about that in terms of what that means is that discompression is probably from the lack of moisture in my body. And so that could result in that, it could also be physical. I was very active, very fire as a child. And so that could have played a part in it, but I do deal with that. And so I do try to work to moisten my spinal column and to moisten my tissues and my cartilage. And so, if it might express like in overheating, you don't want to like overexert. So you want to be very temperamental and making sure that you're not getting too hot. And so to compensate, you're going to want to look at drinking water. I'm a big fan of electrolytes. I don't like ones with a lot of salt, in particular, unless you're really, really working out hard, but just something that's going to provide a nice balance with, in terms of the minerals and electrolytes in your body. And of course, we all know in the summertime, you want cooling foods, right? But being, in a pool or swimming or a lake or what have you, that's also a very good way to cool down. And then just drinking peppermint teas. Peppermint and lemon balm are really, really great. And then I like to do, and I have done for many years with Deborah's mantra-based meditation. I think that was really influential to me because if you think about it, you want to be, you want to settle that fire down. And so when you do like a meditation, a mantra-based meditation, it kind of brings all those emotions down and lowers the temperature kind of inside you and processes the things that are maybe perhaps creating that overexertion, that overheat physically in your body. And so in deficiency, you might have poor digestion, you might be poor circulation, low blood pressure. Qigong is good whether you're in balance or not, but I do particularly like it because it's very grounding. It helps you process your emotions. It helps things, get worked through in your body. And then I do say eat warming foods, but that's only for those that have a deficiency in fire. So if you have in your chart very, very little fire, you're going to look for things that are going to kind of stimulate that process. And then you could, of course, do spices, cinnamon, ginger. Those are all very nice warming herbs. And so the first of the signs is Aries. And so what we're going to look at here is it's hot and dry. And then the ruling planet is Mars. It's hot and dry. And I talked about that up at the top. And so the principal rulership is the head. Now over here on the right, you can see I have this, little zodiacal human, Aries at the top, Pisces at the feet. And this is the correspondence to where, Taurus is here in the neck, etc., all the way down. And as you see, as we move through, I'll show you that it's not actually linear, and that just because, say, Scorpio rules the pelvic region, it also actually rules the nose. And so there's a lot of correspondence between different body parts for certain reasons. But some of the common ailments could be, that they're going too fast or just they're fired. This is one of the signs that just kind of go, 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 go. And so they might be prone to a little more accidents, maybe having fevers, think of the head, vision issues, problems with that. And again, not linear, you have adrenal issues here as well. And when you're looking at the different types of herbs to associate, I have chosen herbs that are based on perhaps the ruling planet or the sign, but I've also done it based on the actions of the actual plant itself too. So it's energetics, actions of the plant, of the herb, and how it might express in you, in which organ like affinity it might work well as well. And so when you look at Aries, you really need things for the stress in the nervous system. You need herbs like milky oats, which is an amazing tincture that is one of the top nervous system, herbs that you can, help lower the stress within you. And skullcap is really great, hops. You also want the action of cooling bitters. And I make my own bitters personally to support my digestion, but you can easily get that with food. I mean, there are lots of foods that have kale if you don't want to take a tincture. But Oregon grapefruit and gentian, those are two herbs that work really well with an Aries. And I know everybody's heard about adaptogens and how they support your stress, your adrenals. And these are some beautiful herbs here that can do that. And then being that Aries is ruled by the head, you've got Gotu Kola, Bacopa, which is Ayurveda, ginkgo, and rosemary. And rosemary is like a circulatory, it disperses the heat, and it is also ruled by Mars. And so now we have Leo. And I mentioned before that I'm actually Leo rising. And so ruled by the sun, hot and dry, again, hot and dry. So you're kind of seeing some of the patterns here. And Leo is right here. And it's the heart, the blood, the circulation. It's your spinal cord. It's your thoracic vertebrae. It's your spleen. And that's just, again, high level. There's more things that are ruled by this particular sign. But, so if it's in this region, if it's in the heart region, you can think about things that might be associated with that. And I mentioned at the top that, I had adult onset scoliosis. So that's one of the things that I actually deal with. So I look for herbs that are going to support me in that way. And because, again, with the fiery nature, you're going to see this as it goes through each sign. You're going to see the similar type of herbs, type of actions, and certain affinities for particular signs. And so pungent herbs promote circulation, and they give you more vitality because it's dispersing that heat. It's moving it because it's maybe stagnant or it's accumulating too much in certain body part, certain organ or system. And so you really want to cool down the heat. And rosemary is really great for that. Hibiscus is really great in the summer. You can really make a nice hibiscus tea. You know, you can even make a cocktail out of it if you really wanted to. But hibiscus, while it is a little bit tart, it's extremely good at moving the circulation throughout the body and cooling you down. And then you will always want to support, of any of the signs, you want to support your digestion, but there's different ways you go about it with different signs or different elements. And calendula and chamomile is really great here. And we also have nervous system support, motherwort, linden, and St. John's wort. So St. John's wort is really a gentle and uplifting herb, but I should note that it is contraindicated, as could a lot of these herbs be, depending on what kind of medication or other things that you're taking. So it's always very good to be cautious about that. And motherwort is really good calming remedy. And, you know, I'm really giving you only the highlights of what these herbs can do, but, you know, like you can use motherwort for women and stagnation in the pelvic area. It's really great with like moving stuck or stagnant kind of tissue state, or damp heat. And then calendula is just, you know, all around really great. It's good for lymphatic. It's good for moving dampness. And so you can kind of see the pattern here, I hope, from what I'm giving you guys today. So really, overexertion and burnout is key for all the fire signs, because when we're overdue, that's really where we get into trouble. And so the last of the fire signs is Sag, and they are ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is prone to overindulgence. It's all about kind of growth and expansion. It makes things big, and whatever's in its way, you know, if you're having a lot of, say, wonderful food, or maybe too much like fried food or whatever you're doing, it can make things a little bit worse. And so you want to be also cognizant of that, because this particular sign can have a little bit more stagnation. And so you really want to make sure that you're moving and that you're not, you know, sitting on the couch or not active. You want to have some kind of movement to help with the stagnation itself. And so with where this rulership is, it's down here, and it's in the hip region. So this is all that it rules here. And so sciatica, you can have liver disease because liver is actually ruled by Jupiter. You can have hip and pelvic problems. And so again, pungent herbs, circulatory herbs, and bitter herbs to support. And I have a couple of different ones here. So dandelion, this is the root, not the leaf, is really bitter. And it supports the liver, the gallbladder. It helps clear out that metabolic waste. Now, being that dandelion can be somewhat of a diuretic, you do want to be careful with how much you're having. It wouldn't be something that you'd want to do on a daily thing. But if you're feeling like you have a little stagnation, you need a little bump, that would probably do it for you. And we have holy basil, rosemary, and sage. Those are really great aromatic circulatory herbs. And I've mentioned here turmeric. It is a warming herb, but it is really supportive to joint health. And it also is really great for liver and your digestion. And so by using that, you know, that spiciness can actually help with a little bit of the stagnation that Sagittarians can have, even though they're a fire element. So again, in moderation, you don't want to have too much, you know, do it for too long, everything in moderation. And then we have our earth. So this is Taurus, Virgo, Cap. And so Capricorn and Virgo and Taurus, they're all about the physical body. It's the structure, it's boundaries, it's your skeletal system, it's the bones, teeth, skin, hair. It's your minerals and nutrients as well. And so they're real solid and sturdy, kind of kapha-like, if you know Ayurveda. But because of the cold and dry state, they're going to be a little bit slower in their metabolism. They might be a little heavier, might be a little stocky, or, like a real strong build. They are going to have muscles, but they probably will be a little bit more on the stockier side. They're super dependable. They're grounded. It really is all about your physical body being in balance. And so when it's in excess, you might feel sluggish. Think about if you get up in the morning and you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm having a hard time getting out of bed. Things just kind of get a slow roll there. You might have a lot of earth. You might have a little stagnation. And some of the key indicators of that could be constipation. You might have like some skin problems, joint issues, things like that. And so when you're looking at earth, you want those warming foods and spices. You want something that's going to stimulate their digestion. You are going to want to avoid foods that are, too heavy, specifically like dairy. A lot of people can't do the dairy because it is kind of heavier, more mucousy in terms of how it processes through the body. So you could do alternative milks here if that suits you. And then avoid sugary foods, of course, and eating lots and lots of carbs because that slows everything down. And so when in deficiency, you want to, you're going to see like extra dryness, brittle issues, weak bones, teeth, poor appetite. I've always had teeth issues. And so it just made so much more sense when I learned about this. And oh my gosh, I've had so much dental work over my time, but I can say that a lot of it has to do with my tissue state and how it is. And of course, I was probably doing all the wrong things as a kid. Too much sugar, too much carbs, too much everything. And it just slowed my cold and dry state down and made it more stagnant, more brittle. And so that affected my tissues and it affected my gums. And it's very interesting to see kind of like how these things work. And so grounding is super important, of course, if you're out of balance, but earth tend to be a little bit more grounded. But if you're not, and you have very little earth in your chart, you want to get out. You want to go walking by a lake. You want to go, gardening. Gardening is really great. Being out in nature, like Deborah was talking about, that is key. We all need to nourish ourselves in the summertime, getting out in nature and really enjoying this time. And of course, like the digestive process can really be slow. So you want to be mindful of making sure that you're not eating foods that are, that you might not process very well, because it's going to stay longer in your system and can lead to other issues. So you want to be more focused on the assimilation of those nutrients to make sure that you have the proper vitality. And Taurus. So Taurus is ruled by Venus. So you could see here Earth, cold and dry, but Venus, some say warm and moist. I do. Others might say cold and moist, but it's kind of, just think of it in this way. It's going to be kind of a depressive tissue state. And that's just kind of a cold and dry, like it's just doesn't have the vibrancy, doesn't have that fluid, the water. And so you really want to be mindful of your own physical emotions on this sign, because their nervous disposition is a little bit higher than some. And so you do want to be mindful of that, because that is kind of where their health issues, some of their ailments can kind of come in. So it's the throat region, it's up here, and it's, everything that you could think that would be associated with it. But it's also your metabolic system too. And being that it's ruled by Venus, the secondary correspondence is actually the kidneys, because kidney is ruled by Venus. And so you can think about that. So that's kidneys would be a lot of everything that's expressed. It's your fluid, it's your skin, your lymphatic system. And so being very cognizant of getting the right type of herbs and nutrients in your body would be really important for this particular sign. But, you could also look at these herbs here. So astringent. So you want to tone the tissues. You want to find herbs that are going to, kind of bring some life back into them and remove some of that stagnation that is sitting in there. And you're going to kind of see this theme. I'm saying pungent again, because it's good for circulation, and bitters for lymphatic. All these things, all these herbal actions really support the body. Now, there are some herbs that would work better, as I said before, with certain signs, but you'll see a theme of some of the same ones over and over again. But lymphatic, calendula as a tea, it's pretty bitter. Dandelion leaves, really great lymphatic. cleavers. You might be able to find those a certain time of the year, and you can actually go out and harvest them yourself, but just be careful that you are truly picking cleavers, because you could put them on salads and do things like that. And then there's red root. So red root is really great. It's a little bit more in depth in where it's going in terms of like the kidney system and things like that. And eating fennel, just chewing on fennel, or having slippery elm or aloe. I like to, in the summertime for me, I'm always increasing the moisture. So I'm looking at things like marshmallow, slippery elm. I'm adding aloe juice, the whole leaf, to my water. I'm trying to find ways to get that moisture into my system. And so adaptogens are wonderful here, and bitter herbs. And of course, as I mentioned, ginger, rosemary, and ginkgo for pungent and circulatory herbs are really great. And then our final one is Virgo here. And Virgo tends towards nervousness. They also have digestive issues, and a lot of it is because of their worry and their anxiety, like their mental health, their well-being. They tend to be kind of everything has to be lined up, a little perfectionist maybe. And so with that kind of physical like stimulation, that mental stimulation, it can lead to exhaustion. And so when we're out of balance, then of course our stomach is out of balance. And so you want to be mindful of that. And so here we are, Virgo. So abdomen, small intestines, spleen, the autonomic nervous system, and the sympathetic and parasympathetic. And because it is ruled by Mercury, hence the fact that this is the brain and nervous system, hence the fact that they do have a tendency to have that issue between their mental nervous state in terms of their functions and of their mind and their body. So Taurus really needs structure, like boundaries, to make sure that they're not overdoing. And herbs that are going to support the digestive process, the herbs and the nervous system, would be lemon balm, which is a beautiful herb. I've listed milky oats and skullcap again. And then also warming and stimulating, again, is chamomile, but also angelica. Angelica is a really great herb that has a bitter taste, but it stimulates the liver. It's great for digestion. It's good for the circulation, and it kind of helps relax some of the spasms that you might have, say, like in your digestion. And then there's also golden seal and Oregon grapefruit, which is really great as well. That's got that kind of that liver taste, that bitter taste. And so now we're at Capricorn, and Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. So cold and dry, cold and dry. And so they have an inclination towards chronic ailments due to their cold state. And us Capricorns really do need to know, how to manage our own personal world rather than focusing outward. We need to really focus inward on our own particular health and ourselves just in general. But they rule as I mentioned above, I said that I have skin and teeth. Now, Saturn rules the body, the structure, but Capricorn is down here at the knees. And so again, not linear, but yet it still rules the structure. So think of this in that way. It's the structure, it's the physical musculoskeletal part of your body. And it also rules the pituitary gland. So again, kind of not linear as well. But I mentioned I had some issues with my knees, and they govern over the knees. You can see that here. And I also had a little bit of now adult onset arthritis. And again, it's from probably that fire cold state. So I'm really trying to work through that. It's also from the activity that I did as a kid. Played a lot of sports, but I probably wasn't nourishing myself as well as I probably could have when I was younger. And that's something I've done in my adult life now to try and compensate for some of the issues that might tend to come up, which we could use herbs for, or lifestyle changes to support. And so the herbs that we have here, because we tend to run cold and dry, you're going to want to make sure that you're keeping that liver moving, you're keeping that gallbladder moving by bitter herbs, pungent to support your digestive function, and then mineral rich to support musculoskeletal. And so Boneset, comfrey, Solomon seal is really, really great on tendons, ligaments, tendonitis. It's great for arthritis. It's good for the joints. Comfrey, I mentioned externally only. It is ruled by Saturn, but it has a particular alkaloids in it that over time, if you take it, can cause liver issues. So I always say external only. It's really great for the skin. And so like if you have an open sore, that is healing, you can use it there. But I do caution to say that if it's just fresh, you don't want to close it over because you don't want it to close over with the infection in the skin or under the skin, because that could be really dangerous. So it's good to be really careful with this particular one. And so I love moistening herbs. I'm all about it. I'm very supporting my bone health. Horsetail is a really great herb. Lots of silica, lots of flavonoids, alkaloids, and minerals. And it really does make a difference in your skin and your hair and your bone health. You can really feel it. And then I've mentioned turmeric again. I do turmeric for my constitution. I might combine it with something that's a little bit more on the colder side just to kind of offset, but you still get the effects of turmeric itself. And so now we're down to air. And air is all about change. It's nature, it's thoughts, it's your mental focus. It's ruled, or the signs are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So it's all about your nervous system that we talked about previously. But these guys, because they're air, they're ungrounded and they're going to have a little more dryness, inside and outside the body. And so you want to do grounding activities, things that are going to be nourishing to support them. You never want to do raw with this type of person. If you're one of these signs, they also have to, like a little bit of slender, maybe lean, more Vata type in Ayurveda. And so dryness is kind of the note here, is that wind nature. And so if it's in deficiency, you might be looking at lung issues. They could be low flighty. They might have a hard time making a decision. I'm sure you guys probably know people like this. But I mentioned Qigong again, because I think it's good for everybody. And I think it's really important to help you process things through that. I love to do yoga as well. And because I lack the air element, I mentioned to you today that I have very, very little. And so a lot of what I do is studying and reading and learning and, doing presentations like this today are really supportive to that air element. And breath work is really great too. So for them, they want to eat spices that are warm, something that's going to stimulate the circulation. And the first one is Gemini. And Gemini is it is the driest of all the air signs. And their ruling planet is Mercury. So a cold and dry, but yet it's hot and moist. And so there's this confliction here between the two different types of energetics. But Gemini rules the shoulders. So we're right over here. Or arms, fingers, hands, lungs. They have a lot of issues related to the lung area, but of course it can be other things as well. They tend to have like some nerve related issues, maybe nervous exhaustion because of their mental state. And allergies are actually pretty common among Geminis. Think like, might have an aversion to like dairy or something like that. So they're really going to do well with nutritive herbs. They're going to want to balance their nerves, their nervous system. They're going to want to look, if they have respiratory issues, they could look for an expectorant or a demulcent, which is going to be moistening to their herbs, vice versa, whatever you kind of need in that moment. And because of their tendency to have dryness, you want to enhance the minerals in your body. If you're a Gemini and you're not having a lot of water, you're going to want to find something that's going to be supportive to that. And I mentioned earlier, you could do electrolytes, but you can also do that through herbal teas, like horsetail nettles, alfalfa, or really all good, salty, mineral-rich herbs to help you kind of retain some of that moisture that maybe you aren't able to hold down. And then we have nervous system, moistening, digestion, mental clarity, lung and dryness, all are really important for Gemini. I'm not going to read everything here because I can see the time. I just want you guys to kind of get a picture of what we're looking at here. And then Libra is ruled by Venus. So similar kind of pattern, but different type of rulership. So Libra here is the lower back. They can have kidney issues, possibly bladder issues. It's about their salt potassium kind of regulation, their acid alkaline, and the filtration of their blood, think the kidneys and what the processes are of that. And herbs that would be really important is obviously you want to support the kidneys. You want to have bitters, diuretics if you need it, and astringent herbs to tone those tissues. And it's all about balance with Libra. I mean, if you look at the sign, it is about that. It's about balancing your emotions, balancing your nervous system, balancing your approach to life. So they can have a little tendency, being that Venus rules it, to have a sweet tooth. And so you really do want a balanced lifestyle. But particularly, like with Libra, you want a balanced lifestyle. Nettle seeds are really great. I haven't mentioned that yet. They are rich in nutrients and have a little bit of a diuretic property, but they're really supportive to the kidneys and the bladder. And then uva ursi and corn silk are really great for the bladder as well. And I included rose hips, super high in vitamin C, ruled by Venus, very supportive to Librans. And then I didn't mention yarrow on it because I don't think I've mentioned that, but it does have a correspondence to Venus, but it seeks to bring like the balance, the harmony in terms of the energetic properties and the way it actually comes into balance for you. And then we have Aquarius, and Aquarius is down here, and it rules the lower legs, the calves, the ankles, the electrical nerve impulses, the blood and circulation. And for me, I do traditional astrology. There's other people who do modern who say that it's a different ruling planet, but I go with Saturn. That's how I do it. So cold and dry, again, and hot and moist. You can kind of see the confliction there. But some of the issues that they could possibly have is mostly related to a lot of circulation issues. So some of the things that it could have is cold hands, cold feet, vein issues. When you think circulatory, you could think eyesight as well. But they tend to have a dry and cold constitution. So pungent and nervous system herbs would be wonderful here to support them. And horsetail, I've listed here again, just because it's just a wonderful herb with a lot of mineral properties in it, supportive of the kidneys and the bladder. And ginger, rosemary, and ginkgo are really great, like blood tonics, like improving the circulation and getting the oxygenation flowing in your physical body. Okay, and now we're down to the water element, and that's Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And so it's water. It's all about the fluid, the lubrication, your lymph, your mucous membranes. It's your emotions, right? It's also about your reproductive process as well. And so if you're in balance, you're going to be going with the flow. You're open to different ideas. You're really in touch with your emotions. You're adaptable. Those are the kind of words that you would think of when your water element is in balance. When there's success, I spoke earlier, I said, oh, maybe you're tired. Maybe you're just not, present. You're emotionally eating and you're gaining weight. These could be all things that could lead to fluid retention or issues in the body's detoxification process. And so to balance it, you could just do some spicy foods, soups. I love soups in the wintertime, hot soups in the wintertime. Just think of the water element as it's responsible for equally nourishing, but also cleansing us. And so there's kind of a push-pull in that. But if you're in deficiency, you could have a little brittle, you could have a little dryness. You're not flexible. And so you want to support the hydration. And you could do this by, having like cucumber water, watermelon, pineapple, celery, all these really great things, being active in water sports, super, super supportive to what the water signs. And then we have Cancer. Cancer's ruling is the moon. There's your emotions. It's your emotional stress that is actually typically what kind of causes the issues amongst Cancers. Everything is kind of linked to their digestive system right here. And it's also the breasts and the stomach. And so they have a lot of emotional processes that they have to actually work with. So they have a little cold and nervous anxiety, gallbladder issues, digestive problems. They could have issues in regards to their menstrual irregularities, hormonal imbalance, fluids in the body, basically, fluid retention. And so they do well with the bitter herb, which is going to stimulate, right? The warming aromatic, right? Or pungent to move and circulate the fluids throughout your body to help with the dampness, because cancers and water signs, if you have an abundance of it, you are going to tend to be more on the, damp side because of this cold and moist nature. And so herbs that would be supportive for the nervous system, astringent herbs, and then warming herbs as well. Mudwort in particular is moon ruled and is really excellent at treating damp stagnation, damp conditions. So think like, your reproductive and other organs and things like that. And then lady's mantle is really great at tonifying the waters in the body, specifically for females who have their reproductive system still. And then we have Scorpio. So Scorpio ruling planet is Mars. And again, traditional for me. They have a tendency to have issues because of their unexpressed emotions. Scorpios are private, and their rulership is here in the pelvic region. And so everything is going to be related kind of to their intestines, their digestive process, their reproductive functions, their elimination systems, basically. It's all about the detox for Scorpio. And if they're having any issues, it could lead to, say, Crohn's, colitis, fibroids, because if you have like a poor elimination of your toxins, those are the kinds of things that can kind of create the issues, get your hormones, that kind of thing. Or if you're having stomach issues, you got to have constipation, that kind of thing. And when you look for herbs for Scorpio, you want to look for herbs that are going to support their tendency towards dampness and stagnation to help, remove that excess moisture and really open up their detox pathways. And so they're going to do really well with herbs that are going to stimulate and move the blood. So yellow dock is really great, red rhubarb and aloe. Stagnation devil's club is a really bitter herb, but super great for stagnation. It's warming, it's pungent, it kind of gets those things going. And then there's nettle root that is also really great for stagnation and tonifying. And then, of course, you want to support your digestive system and moving and clearing, heat from the body where it might be stuck. And then we have Pisces. So Pisces ruling planet is Neptune. It is water, it's cold and moist. And Pisces, here we are down at the bottom. And for Pisces, because they're so sensitive, their reality could seem a little bit cold and harsh. They can have a tendency to have a lack of boundaries, maybe a tendency to do escapism. It's all about them being in touch with their own personal emotional stressors or things like that, and not everybody else's. They need to turn inward to work to heal that for themselves. So some of the ailments are related down here at the bottom to the feet, to the toes. It's all fluids, water, their immune system, and the pineal gland. And they do have a delicate constitution. And so if they do tend to get sick, they may have a harder time fighting off a particular illness because of their lack of tone in their respiratory and circulatory systems, can leave them a little bit more vulnerable to colds or infections and things like that, and water retention. So you kind of want to be cognizant of any kind of autoimmune disorders with them. And you could think of anything that would be associated with potential, common ailments in the feet here, which are listed here. And so astringent, another type of herb that we kind of had the theme throughout, but it's really great because they're cold and watery. And bitter herbs that will help move the dampness, and then pungent circulatory, again, really great for cold, damp stagnation. And ginger is a wonderful thing to have for cancers, but if you're somebody, say like me, who has a lot of fire and earth, I'm very cautious about using ginger, but maybe in the wintertime, depending on how I'm feeling, because it could be too stimulating, too spicy for me. And there's also GI issues of which we talked about. And calamus, which is also called sweet flag, really is great at removing damp stagnation in the digestive tract. And so you really want to support yourself in that way. You could use astragalus. It is a wonderful root that you can take at the onset of, say, a cold or a respiratory infection. You don't want to take it after because it does stimulate the immune system. And then we've got just simply digestion and peppermint here. And I do love mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms, but be cautious of where you do get your medicinal mushrooms from. But I listed reishi here. It's a wonderful herb that plant that I like to use amongst some of the other medicinal mushrooms, but really, really great at supporting your stress and your nervous system. And so I wanted just to kind of leave you guys with this quote today. You know, as above, so below for my presentation. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of the one thing. And that is from the Emerald Tablet. So I really appreciate and I'm honored to give this presentation to you today. And I thank Deborah for everything and, you know, allowing me to do this. And I would love to answer some of your questions if you guys have any. Mary, you can go ahead and unmute. I'm not sure if I have the abilities to.
Okay. Sorry.
To pin you.
How are you? Hi.
I'm good.
Thank you so much. I love it's super interesting. I love the historic context. I think what you were saying was super valuable. I have several questions, but I'm just going to try to limit it.
Okay.
Okay. So, I loved the idea that we are actually a microcosm.
Yeah.
As opposed to thinking of ourselves as the macrocosm, that we're a microcosm. So that was really invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know two things. One, do you consult so that we could come with our particular astrological selves and what we're manifesting and give us consultation? That's one question. Do you ever use herb aromas like essential oils?
Uh-huh.
And can you describe damp stagnation in digestion? Because I don't understand.
Yeah. So do I do consultations? Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. And then your second question was
Herbal aromas like an essential
oils. You know, I make my own lotions and I do that kind of stuff. I do love essential oils. I don't use it very often. I don't take it internally because I know there are some companies that express taking it internally, but it can be toxic because when you look at making an essential oil, it requires thousands of pounds of plants. People just don't realize what goes into that tiny little bottle is a lot of plant material. And so it can be very potent. And then damp stagnation, it just means that things are kind of staying there and they're stuck. So it could be damp heat, it could be cold heat. And so think about it from a digestive perspective, like, you know, I don't know what sign you are.
Taurus.
Okay. So you've got the cold and dry, right? And so particularly if you have cold and dry, think about it from like on the ground where you're looking at, you know, summertime where the mud or the land is a little bit dry and has some cracks in it. So you can have that kind of issue where your tissue state is drier in the inside, but it might lead to more damp stagnation because it's trying to figure out how to accumulate and to move that tissue state around. And so it's trying to compensate in other ways. It's also about your diet, what you're bringing into your diet and things like that as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Super.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And Cheryl.
Yes, thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Oh, you're welcome.
I wonder if you could recommend a reference, a book, or something that we might increase our knowledge of these things.
Oh, yeah. God, there's so many books. If you could see my bookshelf. Are you strictly wanting to learn about herbalism or astro-herbalism?
Both.
Okay. I have three teachers that two in particular have many books. So Judith Hill, she is really well known, extremely brilliant, has many books about medical astrology. That's how she coins it. I call it Astro-Herbalism, but it's just one and the same thing. And then Seja Popham is another wonderful herbalist and astrologer, and he has courses and other wonderful books. He has a book that out as well that's extremely in depth. It's really great.
Could you repeat his name?
Seja, Sajah, Popham, Popham.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, Mary has one more question. Mary.
Sorry, thank you. Will you please write a book? Because what you're saying is super interesting, but like, for example, like I might want to consult Sagittarius, but I'm Taurus. So anyway, please write a book. Thank you.
Oh, Mary, that's incredibly sweet of you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and good luck with your book.
Okay, bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, you guys. Well, that was what I had prepared for you today. If there aren't any more questions, we're right at 11 o'clock. We're right on time. I really thank you guys for the opportunity today. And it was a wonderful experience to be able to answer some of your questions and just share some of the knowledge that I've gained over the years. And again, thank you, Deborah, for the opportunity to be able to present on your platform. So thank you guys very much.